And we're going to get started to talk about cost per lead benchmarks and other data that we found in 2025 that's informing how you should be building out your marketing budget in 2025 or in 2026. So, Andre, why don't you get us started?
Very good. Thank you, JC. Oh, I love it when it automatically goes up. Okay, everyone. Today we want to talk a little bit about budgets. I feel like everyone thinks that it's a bit of a random number that you have available, and you're like, I have $3,000. Let's go. So we want to give you a little bit more of what the math and the thinking process is behind what you actually should be spending.
Yeah, there's also we also want to dispel and demystify what it takes to advertise online because
Yes.
this is I think this is the most important conversation with our clients who are doing advertising rather. It's they're trying to understand what should I spend to make a dent. And I'm hoping that we answer that question for you. I'm hoping that we're able to showcase how you can do this on your own. Um, thanks, JC. So let's talk about John and Sally, Andrea. These are two different attorneys.
These are two different PI attorneys. They're spending $5,000. John is getting maybe one case every month, and Sally is getting about 6 or 7 cases. What's the difference there, do you think, between John and Sally? John is spending it for the month, and Sally is spending 5K every week. So we are talking about entirely different budgets available for this. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's a really important distinction. Like at some point, especially with highly competitive practice areas, you may need to break down your budgets per week. And the unit economics are very different in these practice areas. So in general, if you're advertising in PI, your monthly advertising budget, I hate to break it to you, needs to be at minimum $10,000 and in certain markets, 20 plus $1,000 per month. And it's because the cost of a click, which generates calls, which generally, creates clients, is so highly priced and set by the market. Google doesn't set these prices. It's all market conditions. What is the market willing to pay for this traffic for the maximum margin? And with PI, frankly, we can't even start a conversation in PI unless they're willing to spend at minimum $10,000 with media. That's not the case with other practice areas. Someone starting a starting budget needs to be spending at minimum $5,000 per month. And the things that drive it, what drives these minimums are again your estimated cost per leads. So we're going to do a live exercise with everyone here. If you can find out your practice area in this list, and for sake of doing this live, why don't we do this with criminal defense, since it's a simple number, it's $100, and I don't want to do bad math on live programming.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say you're doing the math part.
all right, so let's say we've got $100 cost per lead. We're gonna divide that number by your minimum ad spend. So like we said, if you're not in PI, your minimum ad spend should be $5,000 per month.
Yeah.
So if we divide 5,000 over $100 cost per lead, you should be getting 50 calls to your office per month. If you haven't done this math with your agency or consultant or anyone else, like you want to go through this exercise today because you're going to find out if you are within the national benchmarks that we're seeing with our clients. So now you've got your total calls per the month. Now divide that number, so in this case 50, by 20. Why is it 20? Because there are 20 business days per month, and we're presumably only advertising during business hours, business days. That's 2.5 calls per day. right? So to go back, let's just do that quick math again because I don't want to do this too fast. Screen cap this. We'll also provide it to you if you email us, summit@abogados.com. Get your cost per lead divided by $5,000 at minimum or $10,000 if you're in PI. Divide that number by 20, and now you'll know how many calls per day you will receive. So in this case, criminal defense attorney is going to receive 2.5 calls a day per business day.
Yeah.
Now, answer honestly, Andrea.
No, I think it's important that they divided by the idea they had, by $2,000, because now you understand why you have minimum budgets. You might just not get any calls. You might get 0.5 calls. It's That's why we give you minimums, because you need to be able to be stable and have momentum.
That's a great point. If your number, that call per day number, is less than a full number, it means you're not spending enough, or that your cost per lead is generally higher. We're getting a question: is this ad spend in Google Ads or Meta? Let's just consider this a blended for the sake of this conversation, where it can be higher in Google and it can be significantly lower in other channels like Meta. So great question. So let's take this 2.5 calls per day or 50 calls per month and answer honestly, of all of your monthly calls, what percentage of them turn into consults or better cases? This will be your conversion rate. You should know your conversion rate. You must know your conversion rate. If this is not off the top of your head, I would probably say this is your biggest constraint right now. Constraints are really important to recognize in marketing because they help you identify what to work on. You should know what percentage of all your calls on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis you're converting into cases. So if you don't know this number, you can be conservative in your estimates. So let's say um, um, to in order to estimate how many cases you're going to get, let's say you're going to convert at a 20% rate. So point two on how many calls you receive times 50 suggests that in a $5,000 ad spend, you could be receiving up to 10 cases. That's if you're killing it. Let's chop that conversion rate in half, 10%.
Mhm.
Now you're at 5 cases. Let's chop that in half. You're converting out 5%. Now you're getting a handful of cases at $5,000 media spend. So these numbers should be very, very simple. Like anyone who's trying to suggest to you that this is a more complex funnel with crazy math and wizardry, no. It's all about what you're spending, how much a call is in the market, how many days that you advertise, and what you estimate your conversion rate to be. We're getting a question here that says, would we only include calls or this should include web leads, emails, etc.? That's a great question. I would say all of it. Let's just, for this demonstration, assume all of your efforts are the same. They're not, but use the same conversion rate to get to that.
Yeah. To add something, just keep in mind that the conversion rate is not determined just by how good your office is. We need to talk about relevance, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. In digital marketing, you're not going to have 100% relevancy in a campaign. So these 50 leads you're getting are not all perfectly signable criminal leads.
Yeah.
So that will affect your conversion rate, and you have to keep it in mind when you calculate that number.
Yeah, that's a great point. The 50 calls you will receive are calls. They're not ready clients. They're people who may have accidentally called you, folks calling in because they need immigration help, folks calling in because they do need criminal defense help in this case, or repeat callers or accidental dials. This is just the nature of there's always ways to filter that noise out, but we're just being very realistic. You're going to get those calls in online marketing.
Mhm.
So now you might be, sobered by this, but it is reality. And if managed poorly, these campaigns can be very costly, which means less profits for you. There are a few benchmarks that we think you should be super mindful of. First is a cost per lead, which we've already gone over. There's a screen cap where you can see the cost per lead there. Um, those are our averages that we are seeing. We're being transparent about it because this shouldn't be a secret. You should know how much it costs to generate a lead in this environment. spoiler alert, it gets more expensive every year. So you have to be building audience now so you're not stuck paying a premium at lower margins in your future. Andrea?
Second spoiler alert, it is practice area dependent. So you're not going to have the same cost per lead in Los Angeles that you're going to have someplace in Iowa. So keep that in mind. The bigger metros are more expensive.
It's a great point. Yeah, these are national blended averages. We do have the more dialed in metro data. You could email us, summit@abogadosnow.com. We could share what it costs to generate a lead in your specific market for your practice area. So that CPL is practice area dependent, also market based. Second, it's relevance, what we call relevancy rate or qualification rate. So, Andrea, why don't you talk us through these 50 leads? What percentage of them are relevant, and what is that metric? Can you explain that metric to our guests?
So the way that this works is that the relevant percentage is the amount of leads that are in your practice area. Does this mean that you sign them? No, but they are in your practice area. So this was a person who was drunk driving and called you because they need an attorney. Relevant lead. Um, they might all not be relevant. I think we discussed this yesterday. For many people, attorneys are not that specific. So they might see a criminal attorney ad and call you because of immigration, or they are going to be deported, or something that they think might be a criminal thing that you actually don't do. In digital marketing, this happens a lot. People will bot dial you, and that might be one of the 50 calls as well. So just keeping that relevance is connected to what the call is actually about, and it is different. For example, PI has a slightly lower relevance rates than immigration. Immigration is always like 60, 70%. It's pretty targeted. For PI, it's so big, so general that we see people calling because someone punched them. And then they are like, I mean, it's an injury and it's personal. So this must be personal injury.
Right.
But it's not. So it is practice area dependent, as we were discussing. And it's connected to what the caller is actually talking to you about. And it's not 100%.
A great way to measure this, because this isn't something that Google issues or Facebook issues. You have to do yourself. So at minimum, if you don't have a CRM, you should be having these leads and calls fed into at least an automated Google sheet. And every week, we prefer every day, you should look at the day's calls or the week's calls and mark them literally yes or no if it was relevant to your practice area. That way you can know if you're meeting the national benchmark, at least for our data, of 20 to 40%. 20 to 40% of any call, of all calls that come into your office, need to be relevant to your practice area. If they're any higher, amazing. Invest more, do more. If it's lower than 20%, that is having a substantial impact on your margins, on your profitability per case. So relevance rate is just a metric we made up because it's also called market qualified lead with the nerdy marketers out there, MQLs. uh, Whatever you call it, you just need to know what percentage of your calls are related to the thing that you offer.
I
um,
I wanted to mention that something else you gotta keep in mind is that this number gets better the older the campaign is. When you start a new campaign, and we have mentioned this in all the metrics related panels, you have to train these algorithms, you have to train these campaigns. So it starts like lower and it increasingly goes higher. So this is something that you should also be able to measure with your marketers. It should be getting better as the campaign learns more.
yeah, it's a great point. Your metrics, just by function of sticking around, generally do improve, at least with the right team behind it. We're getting a question here that says, "What's the most efficient way to narrow audience in PI?" Example is car accidents only. This is a super common question, and um, here's our position on PI: is that if you want X type of accident only, we just don't believe that that works. We've never seen it work. In past lives, I've done trucking only campaigns. I've never seen them work. Um, with PI, if you're serious about PI and growth, you have to take all PI, because without getting too technical in the methodology here, when you're bidding for personal injury keywords, at least on Google, the majority of them are coming from broad accident related inquiries, searches rather. Very few consumers are searching for a motorcycle attorney or a trucking attorney or a rideshare attorney. It's almost non-existent, that market. Most folks know that when they need help with their accident, they don't even use the words personal injury attorney. They look for accident attorney. And what happens was the folks that are looking for accident attorneys, they're looking for they're interfaced with all sorts of injuries, the catastrophic, the soft tissues, the fender benders, and everything in between. So our position is, if you want to narrow, we have found that narrowing in on a case type does not work in PI. It works in other practice areas like immigration, criminal defense, bankruptcy, family law. Absolutely, narrowing down does work. Uniquely in PI, it doesn't. At least the way we do it, we think our methodology is much stronger because it's broader. But it does yield your premises liability cases, but also your high value PI auto cases and everything in between. So our position, to not belabor the point, is take it all, which is why we recommend the spend minimums that we do. Otherwise, you're going to try to look for a needle in a haystack at a very, very large investment, which we don't recommend. Um, Last benchmark here is conversion to signed cases. So you know your CPL, you know what percentage of all of your calls should be relevant to your practice area, but the conversion rate, you should be aiming for 10 to 15%. If it's anything greater, amazing. You're way above the benchmarks. If it's anything less than that, it doesn't mean that the campaign has failed. It means that this is the start of a longer conversation about marketing, about intake, about customer service, about call handling, response rates. There are a lot of factors in this supply chain that make a difference. I'm going to skip a couple slides here because we're going to get to cost per case in a moment. But the variables here are not average results. The variables here are exceptional results. The first line of defense is the marketing. You need exceptional creative, which delivers exceptional cost per lead metrics. You need exceptional intake. Listen, I know it's heartbreaking to hear that you might not believe that you don't have the best, that you believe you have the best intake. I promise you there is something to be gained in your intake supply chain. We've seen marketing budgets dissolve because someone at the intake team sounded like an asshole to 50 callers over that week. Excuse my language, but I'm just being very candid here. But those conversations have to happen when the metrics are challenged. It's not just that the marketing did poorly or that the marketing is doing great. We need to identify, is there a phone menu when someone calls you? If so, you're killing your marketing budget. Is there a standard way to answer phone calls with your intake team? You're probably going to do pretty well. Are you training for empathy with your intake team? You're going to do well. Are you calling a lead the second it comes in? If yes, you're going to do great. If you're not, I guarantee you, 2-3 minutes later, that consumer is going to find another law firm who's going to call them immediately and get a retainer agreement, a DocuSign in their text or in their email in 5 minutes. So again, we're not looking for average intake or average marketing. We're looking for exceptional marketing, exceptional intake. So you have to audit your team, your processes, no matter how great you think your intake is. Just press the reset button and demand that it gets done better because it is affecting your metrics. Next to that, sales abilities, exceptional sales abilities. Sarissa Stevens from Steiner Finder and Green yesterday said all of her intake team members treat every interaction like a sale. They're not just order takers. They're listening. They're being empathetic. They're putting into context where that lead came from. Was this a Google lead? Was this a Facebook lead? Was this a lead that came from one of their coworkers or someone in the community? Like they're taking into account all these variables and crafting a message specific to that potential client. And lastly, exceptional client service. Let's say you've got great creative, you're killing it on your CPL benchmarks, intake did amazing, they created a great story for the potential client, and then they got the retainer agreement signed. You could say, hey, job's done, but you have to keep that client. Clients change counsel all the time.
Mhm.
And what's the most common reason for clients to change counsels? Because they don't feel like they're being heard. They feel like they're being ignored. They feel like a cog in the wheel. And so all of this matters. The whole funnel matters. There's a misconception that your funnel is exclusive to the marketing and the dollars that you spend in marketing. I promise you, it's probably just a third of it. And if you're lucky enough to have great marketing, you need to be investing in internal operations and client success. Because what good is a retainer agreement if it ultimately is nullified from that client going to another counsel, another attorney? So just take this into account that yes, there's a lot of math here, but it's a slice of the greater funnel that needs to be audited all the time. We tell attorneys, don't stress out your team every month with, rebuilding and changing systems, but each quarter you should be doing something different. Comp plans, software updates, retreats, um, renegotiations with your agencies, with your consultants. Like these things have to happen on a quarterly basis. So not only that your vendors feel like you're involved and that you care about the long term, but also that your team understands that they're constantly being held to high performance standards. So we use the word exceptional there for a reason. You can't get great results unless you also are great at all the stuff that we're talking about, not just here in this segment, but in yesterday's segments or segments from earlier today and segments that are coming up just after this. I want you to screen cap this one. This is our estimated practice area, estimated cost per case per practice area. We run campaigns for all these practice areas, and we found that generally speaking, there are bottoms and caps on what these cost per cases are in certain markets. If you want to know what your cost per case estimates are in your market to your practice area, we can give you something a little more definitive if you email us, summit@abogadosnow.com. But this will at least give you a sense of what your competitors are experiencing with exceptional marketing, exceptional intake, exceptional client success, and client management. This is what winning numbers look like right now. So if you want to explore this a little bit more, just email us. We'll figure out a plan for you and make sure that you're getting the right numbers and benchmarks, and also give you some tips on how to fix that. Not asking you to be a client. We're just trying to help a lot of attorneys out in this experience. Andre, any other final thoughts here?
Just one last thing. If at all possible, and this might be a little bit hard, there should be a close relationship between intake and marketing. I often find that this can be a little bit of a tense relationship, but the best clients we have, the ones that we meet every week, are always willing to listen to us when we find a problem and for us to listen to them when they find a problem. So I've heard situations in which people answer the phone for a Spanish lead, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't know who this attorney is in Spanish," and hang up because the intake didn't know what the name was. So just be able to like openly talk in all parts of the marketing. It doesn't end in the person that is running the ads. It's everyone that is involved. And when the relationship is good, the numbers are better. So that's all I have to say on that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think that it's such a great point to just have a good relationship with everyone you talk to and anyone that's managing some aspect of your business, because also they'll care more for your account, and they'll go out of their way to make sure that you're meeting or exceeding these benchmarks. So, I think we have some questions here, and then we're going to go into a brief break, and then our next segment, which is national PI market research with Erica Serrato. Um, Frank Masses asks, "I've read Google is moving away from keywords. How would you change how should we use ad spend?" It's a great question, Frank. Ali, our head of paid media, covered this yesterday. We'll share a replay link if you email us. But in short, um, while the product is changing, there's still a lot of confidence that there is high intent traffic in Google. It's just going to create more products to invest into, like ad products, and it's going to change how it's gonna demand that you connect your data sources, like your CRM, to Google Ads to get the best outcomes. So I think the changes are more technical, but the traffic, at least for now, will still be there.
Yeah.
And we'll stop the screen share in just a moment so that we can continue the Q&A here. How do I know if I'm overspending? Andrea?
You will know. So if you're spending $30,000 and you are getting 6 leads, you for sure are overspending. You need to look at the CPL benchmarks that we share. Uh, Calculate it. How much money are you spending monthly? How many leads are you getting from the campaigns? What is that number? If that number is 2 times, 3 times, or way higher than what we showed you, you are overspending. Generally speaking, overspending is harm Google if you're doing it right. So if you are overspending, something is really wrong.
I mean, yeah, the big one is you just generally know,
Yeah.
business owner to business owner. It's like, why is it quiet in here? Yeah, like, why is it quiet in here? Why is my credit card routinely getting billed every day for advertising? That's a pretty big signal that you're probably overspending. Um, at a minimum, you should have trackers though. When can I tell if it's my intake's fault versus my marketer giving me bad business? Fair question. You have to audit the whole thing. You have to first look at your benchmarks, which is the math, right? How much you spend, how many calls you get. Make sure that you're getting a reasonable relevance rate on your funnel. And then on top of that, listen to every call from said marketing. There are ways to shorten this. You could feed these calls into LLMs and they will spit back results on how well was the call handled by the intake agent. It can determine if the intake agent asked all the pertinent questions. It can also assess whether it was a good or bad call. If even if you don't have that with AI, do it manually. You should be listening to calls. Also, it keeps intake agents on their toes because they should know that their calls are under scrutiny on a daily basis. So, loaded question, but it's assessing all of it. It's never assuming that all things are steady. They're not. The day is fluid. The market is fluid. People, your team, agencies, consultants, they're fluid. They require constant monitoring. If not, you should have a CMO or a head of media or head of marketing to do this on your behalf.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that you should look at the metrics. Sometimes we personally do this for our clients. I'm sure many other markets do. We see 20 calls that are very short and we have to take a look at why. Or we see 20 calls that are very long, but you didn't retain any clients and we have to take a look at why. So we start listening. Oh, okay, this is the problem. This is the problem. Just look for patterns and things that are disrupting that pattern.
Yeah, we have another question here. It says, "What should I do if Google is consistently matching our keywords with competitor phone numbers and even potential scam numbers?" I'm not sure that have ever seen that. Andrea, have you seen
The
that?
potential scam numbers, no. The competitors for numbers, yes. Well, I don't.
Oh, like branded keywords? Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, because it happens pretty often. You can just be like Hugo Gomez, Abogados now attorney, let's say, and Google will show the ad of another attorney that is
Oh, yeah, if you're bidding on keywords of your competitors' brand names, 1, that's legal, by the way. That's very legal. 2, it doesn't violate Google's terms and conditions. They love it because they're getting paid for it, right? However, if you don't like that your branded name is showing your competitors' URLs or websites, here's what I would do. I would go to that competing website or the attorney. I would shoot them a call or an email or a text if I knew them, and I would say, "Hey, John, I see that you're bidding on our brand. How about how about we do this? I won't bid on your brand if you don't bid on my brand." And it's sort of like a handshake.
or you can have
I
a
think it's happened. Pardon?
or you can have a bidding war, whatever you guys are feeling.
Yeah, I mean, or you could have this be, a really, really difficult, conversation. But I find I always recommend attorneys just personally ask that attorney bidding on your keywords, "Hey, just let's play clean." That's totally fine.
I will mention that it doesn't always mean that the other person is bidding on your name. Google is doing a thing now where if they see it's a personal injury in this specific city, so they might show the ad of another personal injury attorney in the same city. It just happens. So you can clarify to the potential client that you're not, or just talk to them and see what they need. That's all I say.
Amazing. Yeah. So we've got a few more questions. We'll reserve them till the final remarks in a couple hours. We still have Erica Serrato. She's going to interview Nicole Bergen about exclusive national PI market research. It's awesome. We're super excited about it. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. You'll see the timer. Any questions? Again, summit at abogadosnow.com. You want to talk leads? You want to talk about audits for your marketing, your intake? We'll happily take care of it. Summit at abogadosnow.com. Get your book, Summit Abogados.com. We'll be back in 5.